Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Mock Draft Live. And I've got some real special guests. You all know who I am, but top left, top right of your screen as you look at it, Mr. Leckdog from the Jock Reynolds podcast. He masquerades on Blue Abroad. He's also a Twitter icon and a fantasy legend. It's actually named after him in Asia Supercoach. It's called Leck Coach. Mr. Leckdog, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic, Pom. Excited to be here for this draft simulation. Hopefully I don't make a complete fool of myself. And for those asking at home, yes, it is Leckdog. I have just shaved my mustache and look like a child and got sunburnt, which is fun.
It is. And if you head on to Leckdog's Twitter, he is raising money for a very noble cause indeed in November. Hence the fact his iconic mustache has disappeared and he looks 12. And below me is the legend that is from the navy blue corner. You'll know him, the most positive man in the Blues, my favorite podcast as well, Mr. Ian Brownie, also part-time rock star as well.
Thanks for having me, Pommy. And look, I thought I'd bring the mustache on here. That's why you've got me on, because you knew Leckdog was going to be without his. So I'm here, very excited to get wrapped into this. And like Leckdog said, hopefully not embarrass myself with some of my picks. I know those of all the clubs out there watching will probably be in the comments slating my picks, but that's all part of the fun.
I mean, the abuse is what mutually binds us together. But for those watching at home, we have split the AFL into 6 each of us. I will be representing the Western Bulldogs, the Hawthorn, the Carlton, North Melbourne, Sydney, and Collingwood. Leckdog will be Saints. So expect some picks from 1980s to go along with their recruitment backroom. Port, Essendon, Gold Coast, Freo and Geelong. And Mr. Brownie himself will have the Demons, the Lions, the Tigers, Eagles, Crows, and Carlton Reserves GWS.
We're keen for it. We're absolutely keen for it.
Exciting. So, I mean, I suppose we get straight into it. And if memory serves me correct, pick 1 is GWS, which is Mr. Brownie.
Look, it is me, and I'm up, and I know we had a bit of a discussion beforehand about bidding on players, and we all know that Will Ashcroft is the best player in this. I do also have Brisbane, but I'm going to take that out of the equation. Not going to worry about that, but I'm going to piss you boys off because in true AFL fashion, I'm trying to do this as realistic as possible. Here we go. We are not going to bid on Will Ashcroft. We're going to take our number 1 pick to the bank because you boys out there, you love that extra cash, NAB cash that we'll get and all that marketing. We will go with pick 1, Aaron Cadman to the GWS Giants because they are in desperate need of a key forward. It's really Jesse Hogan and that's it down there. They need someone else. So we're not going to bid. That's going to piss you guys off. We're going straight in with Cadman.
I hate you.
well, I mean, Aaron Cadman is the number 1 pick in this draft. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because as Ian said, Leckdog, I know you hate this, but this is the AFL, isn't it? I mean, heaven forbid Brisbane have no picks if you match it. And Cadman gets the coin, doesn't he, for being pick 1?
Yeah, lucky him. Lucky him. Let's never speak of this again.
Well, I mean, I actually commend him, but I mean, obviously the key forward, the best key forward of the draft, GMV, Rebels, superstar, 194, wispy hair, played the 12 games, and he did bang them in at junior level. And like you say, I totally agree with Brownie's thinking there. 3 goals a game just under at junior level. The kid is ready-made, isn't he?
He'll play. Yeah. He'll play for them next year. He'll be expensive, but a reasonable fantasy and Supercoach option to look at if you're desperate.
If you're desperate. Well, I mean,
he's not going to score.
You never know. It might be the next Jesse Hogan.
Could be.
Could be. Well, I mean, that's me pick 2 then. And the wonderful North Melbourne. And suppose I've got to do it, haven't I? Pick 2. We select Will Ashcroft.
Whoa, hang on a minute. I'm coming in. I'm matching that bid straight away. My Brisbane boys are coming in. Lions nice and hot. We will match that bid with all the picks that Brisbane have accumulated. 100%.
Yeah, so, I mean, early match
Hands
will
up.
be 2014 from memory, so that should knock out 34, 35, and 36, which is 1566. 1566 plus 465, 38. Yeah, so that would actually knock you out. That basically, for those watching at home, will take 34, 35, 36, and 38 out of the equation. And yeah, no, we won't see Brisbane now till what, pick 54?
Yeah.
Sad times.
Well, maybe.
Sad times. Sad times we had my own.
It's a good selection. Talk him up, Pom. Or talk him up, Ian.
Oh, well, look, it's even though I've given the number one pick to Cadman, this is the best player in the draft by far, one of the best midfielders. They always say every single season that, like, oh, this guy's generational talent and all that, but from pretty much start of the season onwards, he's dominated everywhere he's played, whether it's been VFL or the under-18s. He runs all day, which is just, like, it's Sam Walsh-esque in the ability that he just always seems to be everywhere on the field. He's not just one of those, like, impact midfielders. He will travel. He's got the endurance and he's got the skills. He's going to be very exciting. Will come straight in for Brisbane, even though they're already stacked in midfield. And he should pretty much play every game this season. He's just going to be a superstar.
I mean, 34.5 touches, like you say, hard way, two-way running, not many deficiencies in his game. Got a real luxury, haven't they, as well, Brisbane? They can play him on the outside, play him on the inside. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him line up half back as well. The one question mark is his defensive fragility, and that's a very common way, isn't it? High half-back flank for these kids to learn. They've got to start to midfield, so he's going to be really protected. I don't mind that. And North, they go down to pick 3.
Well, that's you, Pom, right?
It is me, yeah. I'm just updating my draft sheet to get rid of Brisbane's picks. So North then. We will take George Wardlaw from the Oakley Chargers with pick 3, the hard-at-it inside midfielder. I think that's a safe pick for the mighty Roos.
Very good pick. Very good pick. Yeah, he's he's pretty stiff with his injuries he's had this year, which has obviously made him drop down a little bit. Obviously, still probably the second best midfielder out there. If he probably got the season, I think that number 1 spot would have been even more highly competitive, because what we saw early on is that he's just an absolute beast in those contested parts of the game. And if you look, his hamstring can sort itself out. Could be an absolute gun. It makes sense for North. Just keep getting those young superstars in.
Thoughts, Leg Dog?
I mean, I think we're pretty much going to script at this point. Yeah, going to be a valuable player to them. They've got a bunch of young talent, some of which has been kept out from injury. So it'll be interesting to see how that team's made up. But yeah, I think he's got Cunnington around him, a bunch of players there to support him. So, and again, another guy that we're all going to pick in fantasy and Supercoach next year to start the year.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I think he's a great pickup for them. And to mirror that with pick 4, this one was a tough one because I was looking. There is a great argument to pair him with Elijah, I think, and just go mid-heavy. But I thought long and hard about this. I've sought counsel from the one North fan that I know, and I'm going Harry Sheasel, the dynamic forward / potential mid, 2.6 goals this year for Sandy Dragons. I think North will be happy with them 2 selections by me.
No, yeah, I think that's a great pickup. Can impact early for them. There won't be too much pressure for him to perform in that midfield early. He can start up as a forward and learn his craft at senior level. I think he's going to be a solid selection.
I like it. Well, I mean, so far so good. And now we're over to Leg Dog. You've got Essendon at pick 5. So Cadman, Ashcroft, Wardlaw, and Sheasel are no longer there. What are you doing for the mighty Bombers?
Yeah, I had a couple of names on the list here for the Bombers. What I think they really need is someone who could potentially become a big-bodied inside mid. For them, they've brought in Will Setterfield as a depth. Well, he's essentially going to be in their starting lineup at the moment. So it's probably not where I thought I was going to go, but I'm going to be taking Matthias Philippou for Essendon Football Club at
early.
pick 4. Yeah.
The Woodville Vest Tigers. I tell you what, he's marked as, if you didn't watch ESPN, they described him as like probably a hybrid, and like the hybrid was absolutely amazing. It was like he's half Harry Mackay, half Bontempelli, half Frankenstein. It was like the most bizarre 3 players they've ever picked, but early pick, but I don't mind that. What are your thoughts, Big Ian?
Look, Philippou is one of my favorite players in this draft. I've been very high on him. Every time I've updated my rankings throughout the year, I've like looked at other people, and he's been a lot higher on my list than anyone else. I would be taking him with those early picks just for the fact that compare him to like a Sardis. Like Sardis has that outside game. He's going to be a good midfielder. But I think when I'm looking at the draft and looking for top 10, I'm wanting guys that can impact and be match winners. I don't think Sardis is going to be that. I think he's going to be a really good player. But Philippou, the fact that he can go forward, he can kick goals, he's tall enough, and every time I've seen him, he can make something happen out of absolutely nothing. And so I think X factor wise gets thrown around a lot, but with him, I think it's a really good pick because of that versatility that you're maybe not getting with a couple of these other guys.
Yeah, I think you look at Parrish and Merritt, and the big question marks on them are they damaging? They're accumulators and they can get the ball fine, but do they actually hurt you? So that's why I went towards Philippou as just a bit more of an impact player for them.
No, mate, I think it's a great pick. It's a surprise, and this is what you'll probably see at AFL level. To answer some of your questions, we can trade if you want to. We'll throw a curveball. The teams can trade if they want. We'll add that as an element of surprise. But pick 6, Gold Coast Suns. What are we looking at here, Mr. Leckdog?
Well, yes, here we go. I've actually confused myself by taking Philippou and having the very next pick. I got quite a lot of names on this, but I think I'm going to struggle to go past Elijah Charters for them. I think they just need people who can get their hands on the ball still. I know they've got Rowell and Anderson in that midfield, but if you look across their whole list, they just really lack depth across the whole list. So Charters can come in and pretty much play straight away for Gold Coast. So he'll be the selection.
Oof. Tell you what, as well, when him just sliding in our draft board has really made Gold Coast intriguing, because it would be an interesting selection. Geelong might have been clenching their bum had it gone the normal way, because we know they're after someone who has risen, but I like that. I'll tell you what, Gold Coast would be chuffed if he's there at 6.
That's what I figure. And part of the reasoning behind not taking Jai Clark at that selection is because for Gold Coast, in 2 years' time, Jai Clark says, trade me back to Geelong. So a bit of a slightly safer in Charters.
Mate, I love it. What are your thoughts, Ian?
No, I like the pick. I think when he becomes available and drops down, those early picks, you probably take what's best available. And that's probably him right there. Like, I know people have been talking about like a Ginby and a Bailey Humphrey at that pick, which I do quite like as well. But if he slides, I think you just got to take the best talent there.
Yep.
I agree. And it's made it interesting, this, because the order's higgledy-piggledy. 7 is Pom with Hawthorn, and oh dear, there's some obvious selections here. I'm going with what I think Hawthorn would love to see, and I'm going to surprise people, and I'm going to go Cam McKenzie. In my opinion, the most balanced midfielder there is, and one that I think totally slides in to what Sam Mitchell is building. And I'm a huge fan. I think he would go a lot higher if he wasn't playing alongside some of the superstars that he has been playing with.
No, I think he's one of my favourite players in the draft, Pom. You know, I like guys with high floors rather than more so than higher ceilings. I think he's got a really high floor. You've annoyed my plans quite a bit with that selection, but no, that's good drafting.
Yeah, it's a pick I'm really keen to actually see what does happen on the night, because like if Vijay Clark's available, I wonder if they would actually pick him up because he's higher on my draft board. But I think probably midfield balance for Hawthorn. They've got a couple of really good inside guys that I think Mackenzie probably complements that. Like you said, he's so balanced and well-rounded as a midfielder. I remember going to like one of the Vic Metro games. Didn't know much of him at the time, and I went to see Ashcroft and left going, holy crap, Cam Mackenzie is like my favorite player. And that's just what you're going to get for him. He's exciting. He can kind of do it all.
Mate, hopefully it's the right thing. My thinking here is Hawthorn don't take risks. Hawthorn genuinely earmark talent and say, you know what, we'll stick our neck on the line. They're not the type of team that would be swayed, I think. And I think they've probably already bookmarked their picks this year. And even if Cadman slid this far, I don't think they'd buy it. I think they'd be like, no, this is our strategy. So Cadman, Hawthorn, I like that. It'll upset my wife as well with him being linked with St Kilda, which they can't match. And Geelong with the cheat pick from Bowes. Who are we taking?
This is a simple one. It's Jai Clark. There was never any question about it. And I actually think he'll make it to them purely because he's better than what are we up to? Pick 7, pick 8. He's better than that. But we've seen 3 first-round picks within the last 2 years or 3 years request trades to Geelong and get it done in this off-season. People are going to be scared of that. Geelong can just essentially do whatever they want, and the AFL rules allow them to do that. So I think no one's going to get in the way and waste pick 7 or pick 8 or whatever it is and try and take Jai Clark. So he goes to Geelong. I don't even know if he plays that much this year. He'll get some senior footy, but I don't see him playing any more games than, say, Cooper Stevens did this year. He'll be in and out, and then as they slowly age out over the next year or two, he'll start to really establish himself.
Ian, what are your thoughts on Mr. Clark, the Geelong Falcons legend?
Oh, it's the perfect selection for him. It's why they wanted to get that early pick. If it falls to him, it's a fairy tale story. The Geelong boy himself, like, right, all the comparisons to Joel Selwood you want as well. I know Geelong supporters will be excited about that, but just a tough inside mid. And to pair him with like Cooper Stevens and these other guys they have hopefully coming through. It's always joked about Geelong being that old team. This is one of those players that are perfect to just bring in now, and he's going to be potentially that, future captain in 5 or so years, just going to be an absolute gun for him.
I always think when I've looked at this, I think he's a top 5 talent. Like, I know Philippou is like massively rated. I would say he's up there with that guy. I think he's a phenomenal footballer. And then when you add in the leadership, like you say, he's been in the leadership group since pretty much he's come into the system. I think that's another string to his bow, particularly when you're thinking the top 5 picks genuinely are teams that are probably going through a rebuild. So he's the type of player that I think if you're an Essendon even, someone that you're a big fan of in that kind of avenue, big fan of building your team around a young, prestigious talent. So great pickup for them at pick 8 in this draft.
And you mentioned Essendon there. He was my number 1 pick at pick 4 for Essendon, but I put my real life hat on, and they're just not going to do that. They're just not going to do it.
Go on, Essendon. Do it for laughs. Do it for laughs. Do you reckon, just quickly as well, while we're chatting as well, chat, love your input on this. Do you think, let's just say they took him, Essendon, do you think Geelong then maybe swayed to trade out their pick and go down?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. They trade down.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Hey, as a Carlton fan, Essendon, do us a favour. Take 7, boys. Take it. But we come on to pick 9 in this draft, and that is West Coast Eagles, and Big Ian enters the fray. What are you doing with that Eagles selection?
God, look, West Coast have so many picks early. It's hard to figure out exactly what they need because they need a lot. They're looking at their list. I'm saying they potentially need a key defender at some stage to take over from a McGovern. They need probably another key forward down there. They need some midfielders. They need everything, basically. So what talent can I get? And I'm going to go for Ruben Ginby at this pick. Just a top talent, someone that's been talked about going a little bit earlier. It even may be a Gold Coast selection. So he might not be there at my pick 12. And with their aging and injury-ridden midfield at the moment, I think he's going to slot in nicely there. Really happy with that pick for myself. What do you guys reckon?
Let Dog, what do you think? You're muted, Let Dog.
Very good selection. One that I've certainly had earmarked for a couple of guys, for a couple of picks. Geelong, Gold Coast, I think, would look at him. They need someone in that defensive run. But no, I think if you can pick him up for West Coast, he comes in. He's an instant player. They've got a really aging back line. I think it's a no-brainer.
Mate, I love it. I think it's a great pick as well because it suits what you'd imagine that Eagles are a very clever drafting side, and East Perth boy, it makes sense as well, doesn't it? Because there's no flight risk there. He's literally, he can still go around to Nana's for a bit of cake and a cup of tea as well. So he's going to be settled straight away. It's an environment you'd imagine he'll play as well. He's a very multifaceted kid as well, whether it's on the wing, half back. Do you know what I mean? He's played lockdown defender as well. He's played inside. So he suits what they're looking for. He's basically a very good SPS, which will break Lek Dog's heart.
Rest in peace, SPS.
Do you know what I mean? I'm sorry, Let Dog. I don't mean to be horrible. And then we've got pick 10. You're representing my wife's side, Let Dog. St Kilda, what are we doing?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. It's pretty much best available for them at this point, and they would have loved to have got a couple of these players that are on the list. So I'm going to throw maybe a slight curveball, and St Kilda are going to try and pair up with Maxi King on the opposite end. They're going to try and pair up Jed Busslinger with him. Not necessarily an exact position of need for them at this stage, but certainly some high-end talent, and I think he's the best player available at this stage.
Oh, yeah, poor Bailey Humphrey. Yeah,
Who?
You're breaking Bailey Humphrey. You're breaking my love for him. It makes sense though to me because I think that a lot of people, when they talk about St Kilda's list needs, I do think their key defence is a bit of a worry. I do. I think, particularly in intercepting ability, when you've got tools like Sinclair and players like that, I don't think it's utilised half as well as it should be. And I think Busslinger, easily the best tall in the draft down back, easily probably the most potent modern-day transition threat as well from that size. I think it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, they've got Dougal Howard back there and Callum Wilkie and... there's probably some other defenders, but I think it's a reasonable shout for them.
Thoughts, Ian?
Oh, I'm shattered because I had him lined up hopefully for my next West Coast pick. I was like, you beauty, let's just get all the West Australian boys. You've completely taken that out of the equation, but no, I think it's a good pick. Like St Kilda probably have quite a few of those needs. I think just talls in general is probably something that they don't have that elite tier, and you mentioned, they've got a few names that can play in defense, but they don't have that superstar, and I think that's potentially what a Busslinger can be. He's slidden down draft boards really just because of his injury this year. I think if he plays out the full season, he could potentially have gone a bit higher. Stiff on Bailey Humphrey, but yeah, I got to say it's a good pick.
I just don't think that I think St Kilda have got enough players that should be or could be or have been Humphrey before. And yeah, I think it's a reasonable selection. So happy with it.
Mate, I think it's a fantastic selection, and it's made Carlton, Pom very interesting. I'm going to stick with my gut feeling here with this draft, and I'm going to have a sniff at pick 30 now and pick 11 for GWS's 19 and 20.
Oh, sorry. Say that again. I need to write this down if I'm on the clock for this. What were we after, Pommy? What was the trade?
I was going to trade down. So that's 1329 of points. So we've got 1329 and 1629 for that. So that's 1958. Okay, so Carlton will pick 11 and pick 30 and look to move to 19 and 20 from GWS.
Let me have a quick look at this one. This is the essence and the fun of the live draft. I've got to mull this through and have a look, because ideally I was probably going to trade out of one of these picks, but I don't want to, I think, lose both of them. There's a lot of talent through there. Would you be happy to maybe only take one of those picks? I don't know. I don't know. I like 19 and 20. 11 and 30.
GWS also have 15 or 16 currently.
Yeah, you've got 16, 19, 20. So basically you would be going up from 19 to 11, and you would have basically 11, 16, and then you would have 32 and 30. So you know what?
Let's have some fun. Let's do it, Pommy. Lock that in. Let's put me on the board. Why not? Let's wheel and deal.
Great improv, boys. Yes, and very good.
Tell you what, if Nick Austin's watching, mate, that's how you get it done, my friend. That's how you get it done, my friend.
Yeah, put him on a live cam and basically pressure him into doing it.
Send Pom round as I'll use Northern and I'll start beating people up in the meeting room. You know what I mean? Everyone as well. Big Oscar's in chat. He's a young lad. He's just started out on YouTube, and he's done a few little interviews with some players and stuff. So give Oscar some love. He's a blue bagger, and he's doing some wonderful work. Just starting out. So there we are. Carlton, for those updated. Basically, as well, just so people are watching at home, that trade is almost identical in points as well for both sides. So interesting.
There's an added benefit to it as well, Pom, which is if Carlton were to take 18 and 19 or 19 and 20, both considered first-round picks, that for the next following 3 years, they would not have to take a first-round selection if they didn't want to by taking two in this draft. So you could essentially, by doing this, giving yourself the ability to top up with talent by trading for the next 3 years.
Mate, Spawn, Travis doesn't like the trade. I think for both teams, it's a very good trade because I think GWS, looking at that draft board, there is a real obvious talent now for GWS that I think suits everything they've lost this year. That being said, GWS, off you go.
Let's see what happens. I'm on the clock now, and you didn't have this guy on my draft board, didn't think he'd be available, but now I'm in that position. I think it's a no-brainer that GWS select Bailey Humphrey with that selection, losing a Taranto that can kind of go forward and be in that midfield as well. I'm not desperate, honestly, looking at GWS list to get too many midfielders through because they've clearly still got Canelio, Green, Callie. They've still got a good crop there, but Bailey Humphrey with that versatility, that ability to score a goal and win you a game of football pushing forward, is an exciting player. He's someone that I kind of expect to maybe slide a little bit in this year's draft. And I guess that's what he's done here. And I'm very happy to select him with my pick.
I think it's a great pick. I think it's a great pick. I think they would, in my opinion, I've been hot on Bailey Humphrey. I think because of the injury, it's thrown a few thrown a few guys, but I think he is the most dynamic guy outside of Shizo in that final third. And I think, if anything, watching his trajectory, I think he could be superior to Tim Taranto. I think his output in 4 years will be superior to what they've lost. And he's a hungry kid, so I don't think he would be a go-home factor either. I think he's just frothing playing footy. And if you watch the interview with him, he lost someone very close to him as a kid in the football industry. And I think that's huge in his maturity levels as well, showing that he would be loyal and I think he would put in a shift for them. So I think great deal for you.
I think it's worked out well.
Which proves I'm biased as well because Bailey's my favourite. Like, if Pom was biased, he would just gone, get him. But no, there it is. So that leaves me with the Dogs, and this was a real tough one. And I'm going to upset a few people in chat, and I'm apologising now to my mate Robbie. I am sorry because you hated this pick, but I swear to you, it's a great pick. Elijah Hewitt from Swans District. I am selecting him with the Doggies pick 12. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think it's exactly what they're looking for. They've lost Lockie Hunter and they've traded them out. I think he's the modern day complement to a Bailey Smith, and I think it's an absolute phenomenal player, and I think they'll get the best out of him with a very strong core in that midfield. So Elijah Hewitt, come on down to the Dogs. Thoughts,
good
boys?
pick. You've absolutely sniped me again because I was going to be West Coast selection again. I wanted my WA boys. You've sniped both of them away, so I'm absolutely scrambling here. But he's a really exciting talent. He's probably just been not super consistent this season. He's shown that at his best, he can be so exciting, particularly like forward of the ball. I find he can be super impactful, but sometimes that consistency isn't there. He's still young, so plenty can happen. And yeah, I mean, for the Doggies, a bit more sort of that attacking prowess, I think it's going to suit them quite well. You look at either maybe him or a Hollins, and to take your pick between the two, I think that if you want maybe a bit more insight, you're probably getting that from a Hewitt. So I don't mind it.
No, he's got pace. He's got strength. I like him. Solid selection for the Dogs, and just adds to their plethora of players that can just play through the midfield, play forward of the ball if they have to. Yeah, solid. Like it.
They'll change the name. Instead of the Bulldogs, they'll be called the Midfielders. But then, Ian, back to the Eagles. You're building a dynasty with your first selection. And what you're looking at here?
Yeah, look, I'm all over the shop. I feel like you've sniped me. I thought at least Jetty Boy was going to be there, but he's not. And like I had a couple of people up here that I'm sort of still very improv trying to make my selection at the moment. So I'll kind of talk you through it. I like a Henry Huswaite, even though he seemed to have slid down draft boards here, trying to just fill some gaps. Hollins is there, but I feel like they've still got some decent outside run. Just bringing in a Campbell Chesser, I think already sort of complements that. I know Gaff is aging. Apart from that, it's probably Huswaite. I've said they needed that key defender, so there's a chance I could go a Lewis Hayes and prize him out. He's definitely going to be a superstar, but I'm going to stick with what I had in my draft board here, even though there's maybe some players above him at the moment. I'm going to go in for a Henry Huswaite just because of his versatility. I think that might suit West Coast with a bunch of needs at the moment. He might need a little bit more time to develop. Started a bit in defense. He's gone into the midfield. He's 195 centimeters. Could still honestly play anywhere. He's just clean. He seems really composed on the inside. Going with my Henry Huswaite.
I love that selection, actually. I think most underrated player, I think, in this AFL draft. I think the fact he's got fantastic numbers, like you say, in two areas of the ground gives real versatility. And
yeah,
I like him.
What pick are we up to in the draft?
We are officially at pick 14 when this next selection.
Yeah, that's where I had him going, like 13, 14. So I think it's a good selection. And, you know, I think he's got a room to grow, but I think he's at worst going to be a good footballer, which I think is a good result for anyone drafting.
Mate, I love it. And I mean, some might argue he's early, but I think exactly what Ian's saying there. The Eagles are a type of team that will draft on ability and what they bring. And I think Huswaite is a safe pick. He's probably as safe a selection as you can get as well for them. And it'd be interesting to see what they do with Gimby and Huswaite. Very similar type of players who can play both roles, but it allows them to develop them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would have loved a Hewitt. I would have loved a Bustlinger, but I've just got to roll with the punches here and bring in the guys I've already got selected, written down.
Mate, I love it. And you're back on the clock again with the Demons this time.
Yes, a very interesting one. A tough team to honestly try to find too many list needs. Obviously won the grand final the year before. Still got that core going. I think they've had some weird ins and some weird outs. Obviously losing Luke Jackson, bringing in Brodie Grundy. I have no idea how that's going to work. Apparently, me being the list manager, I'm playing AFL Live 2004 and just bringing across all the guns into the team. They have lost, a Sam Wiedemann. They probably do need an out-and-out key forward. It's one of my only real gaps I think I have with them to suit a Ben Brown. And there is one still available that I think really is the next best and one of the only real dominant key forwards out there. It's Matthew Jefferson. He super mobile, can really push up the ground. I feel like he's really good sort of below his knees as well. I was there at Icon Park when he kicked about 7 goals and took Mark of the Year. He's an exciting talent. And yeah, Matthew Jefferson is my pick for Melbourne.
Hey, and Travis called it. Jefferson, yeah, I think it makes sense. I think the Ben Brown experiment hasn't quite borne the fruit. I think, though, that it gives them that option, doesn't it? While Ben Brown is there, they can really lean him into the game. And in my opinion, I think he suits modern-day football a lot more than Cadman in a way. I think he's a lot more versatile. He's a lot more mobile up the top of the ground as well. He loves taking them pack marks as well. And I think he's a better size as it stands today. So I like that.
Yeah, look, and if they actually get him, I'll be so pissed because they don't deserve more good players. And they've got Van Ruin, who just signed an extension as well, who we haven't I don't know if he played senior footy last year, but he was kicking bags of 3, 4, 5, 6 goals as well in the VFL. Pair those two up over the years to come, and that hurts as an opposition fan. I'll tell you that much.
It does, doesn't it? I mean, they're a good side, though, aren't they? I mean, they always draft so well, don't they? They are one of them sides that you look at, and they seem to know what they want very quickly. Bastards. Well, I mean, another side that has probably gone into this draft with their feet up, really, Sydney. There's not anything that when you look at Sydney screams problem, does it? Screams problem. They're really now looking to dot holes, but I thought long and hard about this pick, and there's a few names there that I didn't think would be there. But there is one here that when I look at Sydney, I'd say their biggest issue, in my opinion, is probably down the back with some actual real size.
Damn it.
And some long-term stability as well. I know the McCartins have been brilliant, but I've looked at it, and I think that at this pick, they may bite before the other speculative picks. And I'm going to go Lewis Hayes.
Good. Great pick.
Yeah. You've stuffed me around a bit there with a few upcoming picks, but that's all right.
Oh, GWS have been shafted, so the Sydney supporters will absolutely be licking their lips over that one. But no, Lewis Hayes, I honestly had him pretty much throughout the year, very close with a buslinger. They're both really, really good key defenders. He's got the height at 199 centimeters. He's going to be an absolute beast. I know sometimes he's struggled a little bit with that contested work, but his aerial ability is like unmatched. He can intercept, and I think he can develop and become that true lockdown defender as well. He's just obviously that bit young. But yeah, he can use the ball as well. He's really good at rebounding with his kick. I think he's one of the real complete sort of key defenders. And yeah, I'm absolutely spewing because now I have no idea what to do with my GWS pick.
Yeah, I mean, and like Zane said here as well, like with Francis, and he likes the pick, I think it's the perfect time for them. Do you know what I mean? Like you say, he's got that little bit of work to do, but they've got enough players at that right age bracket to survive for a year. He doesn't have to play year one. And I could quite easily see them feeding him in as that third at first, you know what I mean? To work his intercept ability as he gets his strength up and then becoming a full-time and rotating him with the McCartin brothers. So I just think that looking at who's picking next, I'd imagine that it might be maybe 2 picks early. They could risk it, but I think they'll get that out of the way because they'll know that probably one of the Victorian sides may sneak him. There we are. I'm looking forward to watching the real AFL draft, and when they copy us, I'll be like, there it is.
Yeah.
On the clock next, GWS, who are probably smarting. What are GWS doing?
Look, we're fuming here, but I still have someone on my board. Like Oliver Hollins is still there, which is tempting me so much. But there's someone that I had telegraphed as one of the picks I really wanted for these guys. And he's still there. However, I'm going to be a bit cheeky here. I'm going to bid on a play here. Give me Owen Davey.
Well, Essendon, hello.
I was going to make Sauce proud as well. That just sneak preview. Count, and we're going to come in and be dickheads. But
Essendon were quietly hoping there was not going to be a bid because that eats pick 22.
I mean, we are still in the first round though, so I mean that would be 890 you are as opposed to 1112. So,
all right. So what is that?
So that would be pick 23 white, and they would probably do it with pick 69 as well, would be wiped, because that is exactly the figure.
I imagine in real life, I think they can, after they match a bid, I think they can trade. I imagine they probably would trade 22 out for a future pick, but that's too hard to do. So we will match the bid. And Essendon will draft Owen Davey Jr. very happily.
All right, cool. Let me just.
I am mad at you, by the way.
Talk to us why you went there. What are your thoughts of why they will go there, Ian?
Well, firstly, he's in my first round, so I feel like someone needs to go that bid and don't allow Essendon to have sort of two nibbles at it. I don't think that that's fair when you've got to play with his talent. And when I'm looking at GWS, like I do think they're missing a bit of that sort of mid-forward connection. Like apart from like maybe a Toby Green, I think they've got sort of like I'm trying to think of the player off the top of my head, like a Daniels and whatnot that can kind of push up a little bit at that high half forward. But I think that's something that they're missing right now. And like Owen Davey Jr., he's so classy when he gets the ball. He's an excitement machine. Can have that ability to go into that forward line, midfield eventually, but I do like him as that kind of high half forward that can do a little bit of both. And I thought that was a need. And knowing my love for the Essendon Football Club, which does not exist, I had to put that bid on him and see what happens.
Mate, I love it. And I think GWS, they traded their next two. They have two picks very close together, so that was their one they own, Ben. But no, I agree with you. I think someone's got to do it around this pick, and because it really stiffs them. And like Justin says here, they could trade their seconds for thirds. They could do that with. They chose not to the list managers.
Yeah, too hard while we're live. But I think definitely making Essendon burn that pick 22 is the way to go for it. Because if Davey gets, if no one bids on Davey and then Essendon get a free shot at 22 and then Owen Davey for free, I think that's just too much. So make the bid. You're not going to get him, but you're at least going to have a competitive advantage.
Mate,
and that's what I think that clubs need to do, because they just don't seem to really do that. They all want to be nice to each other for whatever reason. No, make them pay.
Mate, I agree. And it's quite interesting as well, because how this draft board's gone, it's interesting that there's a few players that were top 10 in many people's Septembers has actually mirrored, and they're starting to slide. So very interesting, very hard when you do it on needs, because your power rankings are suddenly obsolete. But GWS, they've ruined Essendon's week. What are they doing now with their pick?
Well, I would just like to add that because we didn't bid on the number one pick, we had to do something to make up for that. So that was it. And I'm very tempted to do the double and go for a Jasper Fletcher.
Do it.
And guess what? I'm going to do it, because GWS, they've bitten back, and he's another player that I think would suit their needs, make Brisbane pay up, even though I'm also the list manager for Brisbane. I've gone the double bid, which I think would make Sauce happy.
Well, I mean, that would officially kibosh Brisbane. So Brisbane are now officially dead and will be spewing, really. But Jasper Fletcher goes pick 17. And in my opinion, I think he's I actually think he is the best aggressive wing type player in this draft. And I think he's another one of them players that they would go higher if, like you say, he wasn't linked with an academy. So I like that pick, keeping everyone honest, knocking two teams out. We love to see it.
Yeah, and I'll just get the Brisbane list manager in. Yeah, so we're upset that they've obviously bid in here. We probably won't be able to make any more selections. They've drowned our picks out, but very happy to have Jasper in there. Like you said, Pommy, he's clean. He's got the endurance. He'll run all day. He's got the foot skills. I like what you said with him being that more attacking kind of winger. And maybe he allows a McCluggage to play a little bit more inside now that we've maybe nailed down our wings a little bit more. I think it's an exciting pick. Hoping it wasn't going to come this early, but we're happy with Big Jasper.
Mate, it's going to be an entertaining one, though. I love your press conference, but I think he's right. But I think this is how the AFL draft should go. These teams should be held accountable very early doors. So GWS back on the clock. Are they going to ruin anyone else's week?
For those wondering, by the way, there's a few comments. Carlton traded down to pick 18 and 19, but because of all the bids and father-sons, we're still at the original pick 15 of the draft. GWS's second draft pick.
Yeah, it can get very confusing. So thanks for clearing that up. But GWS are back. And again, Oliver Hollins is there, and Ollie Houghton is there, who suits that maybe mid-half forward I was talking about. But I think with trading back, I may have found a couple a little bit later. I'm going to stick with the guy on my draft board here. I'm going with Jacob Constanti. So I do think that small forward, even though they've got that Toby Green down there, is a bit of a need because they've lost Bobby Hill. They have brought in Toby Bedford, but I do think they still need some goals from that smaller position. And he's like that. He tackles, he brings the pressure, and he will put it on the scoreboard as well. So, yeah, what do you make of that pick for GWS?
I froth that. I actually froth that. I mean, what 2 minutes in real time GWS would have. Do you know what I mean? Probably destroy everyone else's hopes and aspirations in the next 5 picks, but also throw that out. So I love that pick. I think Jacob Constanti is one of the most underrated players in this draft.
And I think he has the ability to even potentially start to push up and maybe play a bit more high half forward at times as well, because he seems to be really good around stoppages, and he's just got that bit of footy IQ and those smarts. So who knows what he could become, but even if he just is that precious small forward that can kick goals, you're going to be happy with that all day.
I also like the idea of GWS building this sort of attack in one draft, going the key forward, bringing in a small forward. There's not a heap of quality small forwards that I like at the top of this draft. So I understand the logic. And to be fair, I don't think Toby Bedford's that amazing. He's kind of unproven. So they've brought him in. And then after him, there's very little depth in that position for them. So, yeah, I think that's a reasonable sort of... I understand the logic behind that draft selection.
Mate, I think it's an absolute great get. I think it's a great get. And like you say, I love the the sauce vibe of really cementing one area, which has been a problem position for GWS for like the last 4 or 5 years, hasn't it? They've got the key forward now. They've also got the little mosquito full squad starting to be built in this draft. I think Ian's nailed it there.
That's what we like to hear.
Well, I mean, this is a tough one. I'm Collingwood. Got to get my Collingwood hat on.
Which we know you've got in the closet, mate.
I have actually got the one that was donated me for that lost bet. So Collingwood. So Collingwood on the selection. You would have thought that Collingwood would have probably been hoping Lewis Hayes was there, which was my 100%. Thinking. I think Sydney will think the same and go, let's take it out of there. I think Collingwood will go with their strategy. It's been quite open what they want to do. And I think they will get this out of the way, knowing Sydney picked next and have been quite public. They have met with him. And I think they'll go Isaac Keeler with pick 19.
Oof. Big pick.
That's not who I want to draft, Isaac Keeler.
I think they'll get it out of the way. The ruck forward, I think they'll get it out of the way and be like, you know what, let's not take the risk.
Well, they're relatively shallow in that sort of space. They've got what's his name? Someone help me out here. What's their current ruckman's name?
Darcy Cameron.
Cameron, and then not a
Big
hell
Coxie.
of a lot after that. They got Big Coxie, Aiden Begg, who's at the end of their list, probably their 40th best player. So gee whiz, I don't want them to get any good players, but he would immediately, I think, pretty much immediately come in and have some sort of impact. They got Dan McStay there to be a bit of a big body in the forward line when he rests forward. Yeah, unfortunately, I like that.
Well, this is one of my, if you've been following my draft content, I am in love with Keeler, and I started talking about him about this time last year. I linked with the Adelaide Academy. Obviously, they can't do anything about it. I think he's ready-made for Collingwood, ready-made, and I think he suits, because like you say, Cameron and Cox more forward rucks, and I think Cameron's done really well. I think that might be the model that Collingwood continue and have floating rucks, and it's borne them some success. And I really like this kid. I think there's some real X factor about him, and I've been stand by it. I think you do this draft in 10 years' time, he's in the top 10.
Yeah, he's one of those players that has the ceiling to genuinely become anything, and I think his floor's still really good as well. Ability to so clean below his feet for a big man, particularly at that age as well. You don't find that much. I really like the pick. I don't think Collingwood have too many needs apart from probably talls, and him being able to be that ruckman, be that forward, whatever you need. I really like it. He's luckily I don't have a pick around there that I was really hoping to get him, because I would have been very pissed off, because it's a great pick, which I don't like to say about Collingwood, but I think you've nailed it, Pommy.
I've tried my best. Tried my best for your pies. Don't come at me. You see there's no hate here. I've tried to do it proper for him. Pick 20 is also Sydney's, and I might surprise some people here, but he's gone up a few draft boards, and watching him play, I think it gives them a lot of options just around their midfield where I think they want to rotate. And I'm going to select Edward Allen. Have I upset everyone there?
Yeah. Well, he wouldn't have got to me, so it doesn't matter. But yes, I'm upset.
The thinking there is purely, I think they've got a lot of guys that float. And I think looking at their list, there is no real weaknesses now that we've cemented Hayes with our first pick, which might have been a bit earlier. I think this gave them the permission there to really look at a guy that's got a high ceiling. And I think this guy here has got that cripple-like ability at extracting the ball, but he's got pace. And I think he suits that fast, damaging control. And I think Sydney are probably the perfect team. They can sit on this kid and be like, go and do your thing.
Yeah. No, he's probably one of the few players that you'd call a utility in the draft, or at least one that's going to get taken anytime soon. And I think you're right. He can just hide out in that Sydney squad and do his thing in the VFL. Eventually, he'll get game time. And yeah, it's a solid selection. You can plug holes anywhere, and they're just a team where young guys are thriving at the moment. So he's pretty much anyone they pick up is going to turn out to be a jet, you'd imagine. So yeah, happy with that.
Yeah, that annoying.
Mate, you've killed West Coast here. That every single one of the players that they wanted is gone. I think if any West Coast supporters are watching this, help me, because I don't know who to go anymore in one of my picks, because everyone I pretty much had on my draft board is gone. But it's a great pick for you, Palm.
Mate, well, I mean, here we go. Cowton, finally. Well, my plan
you getting your boys?
Back to back.
Ollie Hollands will be Cowton's first selection. We've taken a risk. A lot of people have him sliding in real life, and Nick Austin will be proud. I have cheated the system, and Oliver Hollands is there, which allows us to make our second selection early. And our second selection to go with that is, and I thought long and hard about this, there's a few names that I've got in this area, but I am going to back in what I think is the right call, and I'm going to pick Ollie Houghton to pair him up with him.
Good pick.
Very impressive for me at Sandy Dragons. I think he's the Audi Sheasel, gives Cowton massive options here, and Cowton have killed two birds with one stone. There was some other players I was looking at, but I don't buy into the key PD. I think Cowton have got a lot of key PD towards the end of this draft as well. If they were looking at a key position forward and a key position defender, But I really like it. I really like this selection. And Carlton will take Hollands and Houghton.
No,
Yep.
really good back-to-back.
No
there.
complaints here, Pom. You've been trying to get Hollands to Carlton for about 12 months now, so I can't disparage that selection.
Mate, I've done it. Rob, mate, I know you're upset with me. I know you're a Pies guy. My only thinking there is the guys you've named there. Honestly, I've seen Keeler play a lot of football. He'll play straight away. And like Frampton here, he'll play down back. So I think with Hayes not being there, he would have been my first selection. But unfortunately, I dicked myself. So just to be honest. But there we are. We've got the big Carlton have been. They've come. They've gone. West Coast Eagles. What are we doing?
Oh, God, what are we doing? All my players are gone. I have no idea where to go with this selection. There's still some good players on the board. Obviously, I really wanted to address sort of the key defense. Like, I know Weddle is there. It's not a bad selection. Sort of mid-forward at a Kobe Burgill's there. It excites me as well. Knowing that I have a couple picks here for West Coast, I'm going to try and do it again where I hope another one falls to me, even though it hasn't been super successful at this stage. I know I've gone a bit defensive with a couple of my midfielders, but I do think they need someone to eventually replace McGovern. So I'm going Weddle here at 192 centimeters. He's not tall enough to really play that key back, so I think he can hopefully be that guy that he's got that interceptability and can rebound for them. So it's maybe an interesting pick, but all the guys I wanted are gone. So next cab off the rank is Josh Weddle.
Mate, I love it.
Yeah, he was the next best defender I had in my list. I think so. Yeah, I mean, West Coast are an interesting team where they've kind of already botched their rebuild, even though they've only just started. And by that, essentially by bringing in Tim Kelly, trading out all those future picks, they hurt themselves and probably over-predicted where they were. So if they can build through a couple of really strong key position players, or in this, I think that's the way forward for them. Similar to what Carlton did back in the day. But it's a good selection. It's fine selection. I'm just sad because at some stage I will get to make a draft selection in this draft, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I apologise. It was the look of the draw. We did do the randomizer as well.
It was the Essendon pick getting snaffled up that annoyed me.
I'm just making up for it because I'm a very early draft heavy, and then with having Brisbane obviously not having any of their picks, having an Adelaide and Richmond, I'm late in the draft. So I'm almost about to be stopped in this draft. And then you can take over for me, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Well, I mean, we got to 24 now, and that's the doggies. And Weddle was a guy I was looking at. But one of my favourites in this draft is the guy I'm taking, Lachlan Cohen. Taking him because we've seen Caleb Daniel. The pace has now been deployed more forward of the ball. Tremendous foot speed, probably the sexiest kick in the draft, the best hair without a shadow of a doubt in the draft. And I think a guy that I would say they would be looking for someone with a bit of foot speed on the wing potentially. We've seen Lachlan Cohen at Tassie Devils go a bit further forward of the ball. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it fits their style. And I think if the draft has gone the way it has, I think it makes logical sense they take the next best available who happens to really slide into a role for them. So Cohen, off he goes to the doggies.
Who have the doggies taken so far, Pom?
The doggies so far have got Elijah Hewitt and Lachlan Cohen.
Good draft.
So they've sort of they've gone for players that can move the ball quickly.
See, you're inside my head.
It's good. I understand the tactic. They need to be paced because Luke Beveridge plays everyone in the midfield at the same time. So if you got players that can move the ball quickly, it might work.
Yeah, well, like David says here, the mullet trio. Tell you what, they're going to look very good, these boys. Very good. And then we've got North Melbourne, 25. One of their many picks here. They've got a few picks a bit coming up. Looking at this one, I think I'm going to take best available, but maybe a surprise. I'm going to go Kobe Burgill from Gippsland Power. I think to add to their glowing. They took Sheasel with their first pick in this draft with Wardlaw. Pacey, smaller, little offensive type mid forward here. I think really complements what they're building there. So Cody Burgill will go with 25 to North Melbourne.
Yeah, and I really like it. He's someone that I've looked at with a few of my picks so far, but I think there's just been a couple of guys ahead of him. Now that they're all off the board, it makes sense. He can potentially go into that midfield as well, but I like him more forward of the ball. He's able to hit that scoreboard. It's just a smart pick.
Mate, do you know what I mean? And people liking Cohen as well, going to Tassie. Well, I mean, if they get a team, that's why, I mean, I could have made him go to North, so he was already there. But I was good. But I'm glad you like it. What do you think of Kobe, Mr. Leckdog?
Look, not someone any of my teams really had in their range, to be honest. So I'm not actually that familiar with what he does, but based on what you guys have talked about, can hit the scoreboard, has some pace behind him. It's a reasonable pick. I feel like he went to North, correct? We're still on North.
Yeah.
I feel like North have quite a few players that fit that mold. Just to this date, not a lot of them had fired. So, if they can if this is the one that fires, good on them. They're in a reasonable place. But can't complain.
Mate, I'm glad you approve. But then I've got Hawthorn, and this is a tough one. But I'm going to go with they've lost Gunston. I look at that forward line and think they need a little bit of pizzazz. And I'm drawn to this guy purely because he's got the best POM name you can ever have. Charlie Clark, Sandringham Dragons, get on down to the sensation factory that they are building at Hawthorn. And I am selecting with pick 26 in this draft, Charlie Clark.
Strong pick. I probably had him a little bit lower down on my draft board, but as far as positional, if you're wanting that sort of smaller forward, he's the one that's really there. He's an exciting talent. He has that hunger every single time he's around the ball. I didn't have time to read it before we jumped on this, but there was an article that I saw. Apparently he likes to get in other players' faces, apparently blow in their faces just to get them off their game and little things like that. He's going to be one of the pests that if he's not on your team, you're going to absolutely hate him. But if he's playing for your mob, you're going to absolutely love him. Can kick goals, can do everything in that forward line. He's an exciting star.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be one of those players that, kicks you 4 goals or cameos and kicks 5 goals, but he'll kick you 1 or 2 a game. And it's a surprisingly few players in the AFL that can actually do that. So I don't think he's got the highest ceiling in the league, but in the draft. But if he can develop, I think it's a reasonable risk at this point in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few there. Braden George is there. And my thinking is, knowing how Mitchell likes his VFL stars, he likes that tackle pressure, and that is what Clarkey brings above all else. And I look at their forward craft. They've got Dylan Moore, who is that guy, but he also is banging them in. I think you look at the top teams, they have one real defensive guy, and I think that'll unlock another level to more. You've got Fergus Green coming in. Bit of maturity. They've already got that deal across, which I think will really help bring out Charlie Clark's deficiency. I think George is a better goal-kicking forward, but I just think with Fergus Green there, that bit of experience, and Darcy Moore, I think for me, Charlie Clark as well, with his ability to go down in the midfield. Yeah. Sam Mitchell likes versatility. I just think Sam Mitchell would love to get his paws on a bit of Charlie.
Yeah, right. I think it's a good pick.
Then we've got the Pies, and Pies are not going to shock the world. They're going to look at the draft board, and they're going to bring in Braden George. They're going to bring in probably a surprise for what they want, but I think they'll look at it and think goal kick, pair him with the very likable Ginnivan. And they know what they're picking next, which will suit a need and will surprise some people. But I think that is the pick that, based on the board as it is now, I think Pies would like that little selection.
Yeah, I think in their depth charts, I think they're probably because he's a medium forward. He's not a small forward. He's not a key forward. Is he? It's sort of what they lost kind of when Oliver left, and they've got Dan McStay, Myercheck, Ashley Johnson in that lineup. I think there's room for him to grow and play a role there. Not sure how impactful he's going to be early, but I think for on a needs basis, it makes sense to me.
He was someone that I'm going to be excited. Sorry, Palmer, to cut you off. I'm excited to see what club does pick him up because he's got the talent, but I don't know who necessarily around this range really does need him and whether he will go before a Collingwood that maybe do need to. I know he's not really the Jamie Elliott type player, but he's aging and you're going to need someone else that can kick goals down there that's a little bit more mid-sized that can lead up the ground and take a mark as well. So I think he fits that need and yeah, he's going to be an exciting player if can stay fit because he had those injury issues this year. You don't know if that's going to potentially progress, but he just knows where the goals are, which a lot of these small forwards, a bit more pressure-based, he's definitely that goal kicker.
Mate, no, I agree with you. And he's, like you say, we mentioned Ollie Henry. Thankfully, Braden George doesn't have a brother at Geelong, so I think he suits the bill. And we've got Big Ian on the clock. West Coast Eagles.
We are back, and finally, someone that I actually wanted is still on the draft board. So we're just going to go really easy with this pick. Ruck is a bit of an issue in this side. Nick Nat, he's about 100 years old at this stage. They need someone else. There's really only one ruckman I like in this draft. And so West Coast Eagles will select Harry Barnett from West Adelaide. He, as I said, he's the best ruckman in this draft class. I think they need someone to come in. I don't know if he will play straight away. He might need a little bit more time, but he's a big boy at 202 centimeters. He's athletic. He can take a mark as well around the ground. I think he's that quintessential AFL ruckman that everyone wants at this stage.
Hey, I love it. I think it's a sensible pick. I think it gives them the coverage for Nick Nat. They've tried all sorts of players there, haven't they, as well? They've tried Oscar Allen and stuff. I like it. What are your thoughts, Let Dog?
Oh, well, I mean, 3 of my teams need ruckman, so and we're all about to pick. So he's definitely one of my favorite ruck prospects in the draft. If not my favorite. Is Keeler's a forward ruck, isn't he? Yeah, this is probably my favorite pure-ish ruckman in the draft. Yeah. So, that's very frustrating. And West Coast have a few tools on their list that it's kind of like TDK for us. They've got a few players where they say this guy could be the next ruckman, but I don't think any of them are legitimately going to be that next ruckman. So this gives them some time to play with and some time to develop. And who better to learn under than Nick Nat Nui, to be honest?
Yeah, mate, I love the pick. And we're on to Collingwood now. And I'm looking at this and I think a swingman screams to me. And I might be taking him a little bit too early, but I think this would really then suddenly complete Collingwood's draft. I think they've brought in Keeler. They've got the ruck forward. They've brought in George. They've got the medium-sized forward. Matt Gruszewski from Oakley Chargers plays down back and forward. Intercept specialist. We do know that Collingwood don't mind going small as well. I think he's a solid pickup for Collingwood, and suddenly Collingwood have done pretty well in that 10 square space, I think.
Well, it's hurt us. It's hurt us, both of us, I think, by the reaction. But no, he's another one of these guys that probably didn't necessarily show up throughout the whole year, but he could play down back. The last couple of games that he played down forward, it was like, who is this guy? He's come out of absolutely nowhere, can kick a goal. It looked like any time he was near the ball. So I love that versatility of someone that if they need him to be down back and develop, they can do that. They need to swing him forward. It seems to make sense. A lot of upside on someone like him. He has a lot of potential.
Mate, it's going to be an interesting one. And we finally see Leg Dog, St Kilda. What are the beautiful Saints doing with Ratton?
Well, they're sacking Ratton. Who's coaching them now? Oh, Ross the Boss is back.
Ross is back.
So this is going to hurt Damo, who's watching at home. But on my list, and I'm actually surprised he's still there, but Mitch Sabowski is going to be the selection. Not necessarily 100% a player of need for St Kilda, but I think he's the best available player on the board, and he'll come in and he'll play on the wing for them almost immediately. Allows Brad Hill and stuff to continue playing behind the ball as he ages out. I think they bring him straight in, and he can play inside as well if you need him to.
Mate, I like it. I think it's a sexual little pickup as well. Great name. And I mean, you know what is amazing? He has played inside.
Yeah.
Which
he can do a bit of everything. And they've just had Dan Hanbury leave. Obviously, he hasn't been a big part of that side. But yeah, certainly a guy that can go inside, outside is flexible. And yeah, I had him rated way higher than, what are we up to? Pick 30-ish?
Yeah. Mate, it's one of them as well. It's just amazing for St Kilda to have an inside midfielder.
Yeah.
as opposed to an outsider who might play midfield. So no, I like that selection. I'm down with it.
Yeah, very happy with that one.
And then GWS 31. Ian,
it's tough. GWS, yeah. This is a hard thing. There's a lot of players that I was hoping for this pick that would I be able to select. A lot are gone. Just to correct me, Pom, I do have another pick with GWS in a couple. Do I? Because of that Carlton trade? So
you've got 31 and 33.
Okay, that makes sense there. Look, I find GWS such a hard one to actually look at. As I sort of mentioned, like I've been able to bring in a Humphrey that can do everything, can stand you down in that forward line, and a Cadman, and I'm looking at what else they need. They probably do need a bit more in that midfield, maybe a bit of key defense there. Who should we go? Around here? I'm on the spot a little bit for this selection. Look, I'm scared someone may take him. I'm maybe going to go a bit early. I'm going to go an academy player here. We're going Harry Ralston, so no one else can select him. Midfielder is 182 centimeters, so he's a little bit smaller, but he just works really hard. And I liked what he did for the Allies a little bit this year, where when he was able to go forward, he could take a mark even with his size, and he seemed to be able to slot it every single time. He maybe not going to be super exciting, but a solid pickup, and hopefully someone that doesn't want to leave, which I think is key for GWS here. And knowing that if it's before 40, I think, and if it's, before 40, we can't match a bid. So just get him while I can, I think.
Mate, he's one of them players as well, like he smells of GWS will take him and turn him into a very good player. Doesn't he?
I hope so.
Let Dog, your thoughts, my friend.
Honestly, I'm panicking about my next selection, so I don't know how helpful I'm going to be here.
Well, we'll throw you on the spot. Fremantle, pick 32.
All right, to buy themselves some time, Fremantle are going to bid on Max Michelani, who's I think's a father-son for Adelaide.
Yeah, he is indeed.
I hope they will match.
We will definitely match that bid. Imagine if we didn't, just to try and see if another club didn't want to do it. No, I think it makes sense. Adelaide, they need help in a lot of areas. I don't rate their key defensive stocks, to be honest, at this stage. I think they got Butts, they got Murray, both are okay. They definitely need someone down there. The father-son adds to it, so definitely matching that one.
Okay, so that would burn 2 Adelaide picks.
Adelaide are done.
No, they've still got one. They've still got the surplus 200, so you would be fine. You would have pick 55. But
yay, that's exciting.
You've done that, so Fremantle moved to 33. Where are you going with this pick?
This is an interesting one because at this pick, there's not a lot of players who I like that fill a need. I've got a couple of targets later in this draft for Freo. I reckon if this was real life, they'd probably try and trade down slightly. Gee whiz, who am I going to take? I've got 2 names in mind, both defenders. I think we're going to go with the local boy, Sam Gilby. Medium defender, not exactly what they're after. They're looking for more key defenders, but he's a local boy. He's got some talent, and he's the next name on my list, which is the number one thing.
Mate, I think it's a safe pick. I think it's a safe pick. What are your thoughts, Ian?
He's someone that I've had almost linked to every single one of my teams. So I had a fair few around this range, or maybe a few picks later. And he was always that if a few others go ahead, he's probably someone I'm going to take. And yeah, I think his ability to sort of rebound, I've probably got maybe a few in that mold at this stage. But I think when you're always that kind of team, interstate, not that Victoria bubble, you probably need to take someone around there. I maybe would have gone a couple of the other boys around there that are from WA myself, maybe like a Jed Hagen or even a Darcy Jones that are WA. But I do think Gilby is a solid player, and yeah, I don't mind the pick.
Mate, I like it, and I think some teams will go bold, and I think Fremantle might be one of them teams that bat themselves in as well with good culture and things like that. But we moved to 34 GWS. What are you taking?
Back on the board, very much like I think Lekdog there. I have no idea what I'm going to go with this pick because we've addressed so many needs, and we have, I'm almost willing to potentially trade out if anyone is interested for potentially a future pick.
I don't have the capacity in my brain to do that.
If anyone does want this pick, I feel like they've been able to nail the key forward that they're desperately after. They've got that mid forward in Humphrey. They've got Constantia is that other forward for them. Rouston can do a little bit of both, being that midfielder depth for them. Doesn't need to play this year. I know we still have a later pick, so if anyone does want, I think ideally, even though they have traded back, though, I think GWS, I probably do want to get rid of one of these picks and turn it into a future because they've just got so many. And are you going to take 6-7 kids in one draft? You're probably not. So, Pommy, if there is a team that you would like to trade for a future, whatever, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I will make my selection.
Tell you what, let me have a wee look. Let me have a wee look, because
feel free to.
Maybe, you never know, but maybe I wouldn't be surprised to see Mr. Nick Austin be looking at that board.
Go again.
Looking at that board and thinking, you know what, maybe we can help you out this year. Maybe we can help you out. Let's have a quick look. Let me just bring up my future next year. So Carlton will offer you a future. Where are we? Pick 36. A future second for that pick with a future fourth coming back, which should work out well on points.
That sounds great to me, Pommy. I'm happy to not have to make a selection there because, as I said, how many guys are some of these teams going to pick? And that's the fun part about adding this live trading into it as well. I don't believe that GWS will take all of these kids, and I'm happy to move out of this selection.
Okay, I like it. And I'm with you. I think GWS probably will be looking at that and thinking, you know what, do we need to do it? And I've got my eye on someone, but first, Carlton will be sneaky with Essendon. And they will bid on Anthony Moncada.
And he's gone.
I don't think we can match that. It's inside 40.
They wouldn't be able
inside
to
40.
match that, no.
So if you don't want him, you can bid on the other Davy twin and fuck us.
So Carlton will take Anthony Moncada. Actually, tell you what, I renege that selection because I was being a dickhead. I will go Cooper Harvey on this one to force North to bid with their father's son and match it, which obviously North will match. Mr. Austin will be very proud of me. So that would kill their next two picks, that would do. So Cooper Harvey is matched by them. So Carlton are still on the clock. And Carlton, I'm looking at what we've taken. We've got the forward sorted. We've got the midfield sorted. Carlton have had a good selection. Carlton are going to look at their defensive stocks, and they've got 2 list spaces still left. But Carlton might surprise people here and go James Van S. from GMV. The key.
Did not expect that one from you.
Right.
Jeez, that is a bolter. He's a draft bolter, if ever I've seen one.
Mate, I just figured that Carlton, I do think will probably want that security. And at this stage here, they have got a privileged position of having all positions fixed. I think that would be a very nice thing for Carlton, just to trade up, get that, knowing that pick 46 will be their last selection in their draft, and they've done.
Yeah. Well, I really did not think he was going to get taken. I had him absolutely locked into going to Fremantle, so that has thrown a spanner in the works there.
Hey, well, I mean, so just to update everyone at home, Cooper Harvey, their bid was matched. Then Carlton came in, James Van S, and Carlton pretty much home and hosed with one more pick left in the draft. But then St Kilda come onto the clock. Pick 36. What are you doing, Mr. Lecker Dog?
Well, I think in real life, St Kilda would have traded a couple of picks after they missed out on their academy player whose name escapes me right now, because they actually have more selections than they're going to take in this draft. This will be their last selection. So after this pick, they will not be participating. So we took Buzzlinger, key position defender. We took Sabowski, who's an inside mid. So I guess we just go next best available on my list. But there's a couple of WA boys. I don't know if they want to draft the go home factor. We are going to take another defender. Do we want another defender? Oh, we're just going to do it. We're going to take the next best on my list. We're going to take Jacob Ryan from SA. I think he plays for Glenelg. Purely because I think this draft is all about take the best talent available. And he, for me, is the next best available talent.
Mate, Ian, what are your thoughts on that? That's a big selection for the Saints.
Yeah, they probably do need that help down there. So I don't hate the pick. That sort of medium tall-ish defender, probably not tall enough to play that key back, but can kind of intercept a little bit down there. Will be interesting if there's any go home factor. Obviously, anytime you draft anyone interstate, but there's only so many talent in Australia. At some stage, you back your culture in and you say you can keep him. Yeah, he's a solid player. If Adelaide did have another pick this early, would have been nice to sort of pair him up down there, but we don't have one, so that is absolutely fine to take him.
I think I think you get him, you stick him next to Buzzlinger. You got two solid defensive guys to build around, as we spoke about earlier in the draft. They're not super deep back there. The players they do have are pretty good, but the depth just isn't quite there. So Jacob Ryan goes to the St Kilda Football Club.
Mate, I love it. And pick 37, Port Adelaide enter the fray. Very late. What are Port Adelaide doing?
Yeah, Port Adelaide. I'm Port Adelaide, by the way. They would have loved to have taken Jacob Ryan, just as an FYI. I did not think that one through. Port Adelaide, I'm just trying to dig up my next best defender on... Oh, gee whiz, there's not a lot of players I love at this point in the draft for Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide are going to take a look at... Oh, gee whiz, I'm floundering here, boys. Feel free to fill some dead air while I look at this.
For some Carlton fans in chat, I was the Carlton list manager. We did some deals with GWS. We managed to fall back in the order, pick 21 and 22. We took Hollands and Houghton. We also drove up the board for pick 35, and we got James Van S. And Carlton, one more selection. We've rookied Mr. Ed Kerner, so we have one spot left. But Ian, you're a big Carlton fan like myself. What do you think of Pom Austin?
I think you've done an unreal job, and you've gone to your good mates GWS. So you've got that lovely history to be able to just get all the picks that you'd like. And so I've tried to help facilitate that a little bit for you. I love it. You've managed to get The man I think we're all expecting to select early, Hollins, you traded back and still were able to get him. I think that's a lovely piece of business. I think you've nailed all the selections. James Van Ness is the interesting one, but I think those later picks for Carlton will be heavily on key position talent to hopefully develop rather than having to plug them straight in. We know the injury issues down back. So I think you've done a great job there, Pommy.
All right, Port Adelaide's selection is in, gentlemen. They need tall defenders. This guy probably not quite as tall as they want, but they're going to be taking Tom McCallum from Tasmania, and he's going to come in and they play an undersized sort of back line when they play Trent McKenzie at fullback. Obviously, he's getting on in age now. It's probably the main spot on their list that they lack some development. So Tom McCallum will come in. He won't play this year, but hopefully he'll develop. He's a bit raw, and he'll have some time in the SANFL to develop over the next couple of years.
Mate, I love that selection. I love it. I think he's very underrated. I'm a big fan of Tasmanian players. Those following my draft content, very underrated. People just forget about Tassie Devils, and I think they've got a lot of top talent. I think that's a very good selection for them. And I think there's a bit of growth in the Tassie boy as well. There's a little bit of height to come because he hasn't grown dramatically in the last 2 years. So usually that spells late bloomer. What are your thoughts, Ian?
No, I like the guy. He's got a bit of pace about him for a guy that's got a bit of height, which you don't often find. I think it's clear that Port need a defender, and it's hard at this position. Who do they necessarily go for? I've in one of my fandom drafts I've sort of created, I have a feeling they may go for like an Ethan Phillips, maybe a bit more of a mature guy. But for this, I guess, scenario, like, are they looking to maybe get someone a little bit younger that they can develop and go through this kind of mini rebuild to get them up? Or do they go for someone a bit more mature? That's going to be the interesting thing. But I do rate McCallum. I don't have him too far below a Phillips as far as potentials there. So I think at least you're not really getting too much of a go-home factor, because at the moment, Tassie don't have a team. So where else can he go? And hopefully he can build a nice little family over in South Australia.
Mate, I agree.
I was just going to say it's an interesting one. They're at an interesting point where I think they're probably slightly overrated. I think they probably overrated their second half of the year. If I'm them, if I'm the list manager, having got Jason Horne-Francis, if I can get some young talent in with the few picks I have, I think that's the way I'm going rather than trying to impact directly straight away. And you'll still have an opportunity to grab some mature age guys in the rookie draft and the preseason draft and the supplementary selection period or whatever it's called. So that was the logic in the end.
No, I like it.
Good logic for me. And Ian, the Melbourne team. And just to answer you, Jolly Pet, love you too. My Charlie Kerner is in the other room. All the Carlton stuff's gone out. So I'll grab it if we have a break and rub it for you for luck. But here we are. Ian, 38, Melbourne. Where are we?
Well, this is a very tough one. Again, I think, like I said earlier with Melbourne's selection, I'm just not too sure where they can go. Jefferson seemed to make the most sense early as a key forward. Apart from that, I don't know really where a lot of their needs are. They've been able to bring in a Lockie Hunter that can play a bit more on that outside. They've lost Jaden Hunt, so maybe they've lost a bit of halfback pace running through there. But really at this selection, it's probably not a lot of halfbacks that I love that can truly play that position. What I'm going to do here, because of that, is look for someone who can run, and maybe we can. I know they've played Brayshaw in a few different positions. They've maybe moved him down a halfback. So I'm just going to look for someone with a lot of leg speed. And a guy I have here is Jackson Binns that I'm going to take. Can run all day. I really like this guy. I know some people bash his kicking a little bit, but I don't think it's as bad as many are making it out to be. He's got that outdoor game. He's got that endurance to be able to learn with a Brayshaw, with a Langdon. He could have that capacity to maybe push up higher and be an impact half forward as well. Or maybe he can become a bit of a halfback. I just think that he would suit what Melbourne seem to kind of draft and develop.
Love the pick. I love the pick. I think he started to slide down because of the kicking, but I think he only had to see his last game, the Metro Country game. He's sensational footballer, and I think Melbourne could sharpen him up pretty quickly. Thoughts, Mr. Leck?
I'd be pretending if I had any insight on him, to be honest with you. But if Melbourne are selecting him, I think that's a generally a good sign. All of the clubs that I was focusing on at this point of the draft require talls, so that's purely where I've been looking at anyone over 200 centimeters.
Mate, I think it's a good selection. No, I love it, and great pick, Ian. Got to say, great pick.
Thank
great
you.
pick. I agree with Adrian. Runs all day. Is that the most common AFL phrase? Oh,
yeah, I know we're obviously all Carlton supporters, so I'll squeeze this in here. But if we're able to somehow get him, if we don't maybe bring in a Hollins, I think that would be a perfect selection for Carlton, just because of his attributes.
Mate, I agree. I think he's a very good. I mean, the only problem is his bad kick, though. Carlton fans.
Yeah. We don't maybe need too much of that.
Is there anything more Carlton? Guy who runs all day, can't kick, though.
Exactly. He fits all the stereotypes.
Well, mate, we have Lockie O'Brien who runs all day and can kick, and people don't like him. So you may as well get someone who can't kick.
Yeah, mate, I'm with you. Well, pick 39. There's a few options here on the board, but I'm looking at the doggies, probably the most complete, one of the more complete lists in the AFL, if we're honest. And I'm looking and thinking that the doggies missed out. They did get Hewitt and they've got Cohen. I think that they may want just a pure out-and-out type goal-kicking small forward to complement it. And I am going to, with the last chance, Munkara comes in and ruins Essendon. And I would love this in real life if someone on the last available point decided to break teams' hearts. So the doggies are doing it. Pick 39. In comes Munkara. No risk, flight risk for him. Off he comes in. And in my opinion, one of the more talented small forwards.
We may need to get a suicide watch on Adrian Dodoro at the moment.
Right. It's one of them wonderful things that it was nice to break the hearts of them. Nice to break the hearts. And then I've got Hawthorn. And Hawthorn have got some real tasty selections here. But a guy that has slid down on this, Darcy Jones, I think would be relishing working with Sam Mitchell. And we know Hawthorn genuinely don't stray away from going interstate. They back their system in. And I'm bringing him in. Darcy Jones to work with one of the goats in Sam Mitchell. I think he would love that outside run. And so far, Hawthorn have had a pretty good draft, I think, in this so far. Thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Well, I think that's it. They just it's just stockpiling those type of players that can develop under Mitchell. They've even got guys that they brought in last year who have barely played that are of similar molds. So it's kind of just having multiple cracks at the cherry. And Hawthorn they're kind of in. I know people are saying that they've been rebuilding for a couple of years, but to me, they're still kind of almost pre-rebuild. Like they're still acquiring selections, so they got to maximize upside on the selections they do have at this point in the draft. And I think Darcy Jones, I had him. What pick are we up to?
Pick 41 is my next
so
pick.
I had him going 5 or 6 picks before this, so I think it's a reasonable selection.
No, I like it. I have him like 31 in my overall rankings. If I'm ranking all the talent, I would have hopefully have earmarked him for one of my WA slots at West Coast, but just didn't get to me. But no, like the AFL, I think, is starting to become a little bit more mature because the big knock on him is clearly his height at 174 centimeters. But you look at everything he does with the ball and how able he is still to win it. I think you got to work on that. You look at a Caleb Daniel that slid so far simply because of height. You'd think clubs maybe have learnt their lesson a little bit. Hawthorn tend to draft really well, so I think that makes sense for them there.
Yeah, that was my thinking. I think that they'll bank talent and back their system in. So hopefully that works out. And then we go to Sydney. Now, Sydney, so far, their trades, their picks have been good. They've got Hayes, they've got the backline secured. They've managed to get Ed Allen So now really they're probably in the situation of looking at best available. And I'm looking at the draft board, and there's a guy that's just screaming at me that I think they would love to take just by the way he plays. And I think he's a very exciting talent. And that is Mr. Noah Long. I'm a big fan of Noah Long, and I think he suits that little crafty small that can kick in a snag. I think that Sydney would like him, and they don't need him to play today. That's the wonderful thing for them. I think it's stockpiling a bit of talent and really giving him the best opportunity. And Noah Long will play a lot of VFL football, and we know Sydney are in the VFL, so it's not going to be a huge flight risk, and they've already spoke about that quite publicly, that now that they've got the state league here, it does help them open up the Victorian. So Noah Long, I just think he's something that they haven't got, someone that they've got a bit of talent for, and someone that I think that they'd quite like around that paddock.
He's such an interesting player as well, because he's obviously not the tallest, but he doesn't play like you think a small would. Like, he loves to go in there. He loves that sort of contested side of things. So no, I think it's a really good selection for Sydney.
Thoughts, Lecky?
No, still, I've got 2 picks coming up. There's no point throwing to me as I panic click through my list of players.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm not great company at this point in the draft.
Well, I mean, you are at pick 42. You have got the next 3 picks: Fremantle, Gold Coast, St Kilda. So we'll give you a bit of time, and just raise your hand when you're ready, or say, "Pom, shut the fuck up." But let's take a look at Ian. So, Ian, you've done a bit of business with GWS, but just to fill those in at home, GWS gone Aaron Cadman, Bailey Humphrey, Jacob Constanti, and Harry Roston. You've done well. You've done well.
Yeah, I'm not too unhappy. I think the first couple of picks definitely, like, I was not expecting to get Bailey Humphrey through the doors. When I was originally looking for my second pick, it was really maybe a Huswaite kind of player, and then I was definitely hoping to get Constanti with my third. So I'm very happy that it landed that way, and to be able to trade up a little bit and still get some of the players I was hoping to get later. I think it's worked out really well for them. Able to get in that key forward, get in Bailey Humphrey, who is just, he literally could be anything, that X factor. I'm so happy with my business.
I'm ready when you guys are, by the way.
All right, let's do it. Well, Fremantle, pick 42. Where are you?
Fremantle will be taking mature age selection Ethan Phillips. They desperately need some talls in that back line. They had a couple leave in the offseason, and Ethan Phillips comes in. He's probably the closest thing in the draft to ready to play today in terms of key defender or tall defender. So he'll come into that side, and they'll use him to compete from day dot, basically.
Mate, I love it. I think I reckon you'll start seeing a few mature age. We are in that area now of the draft where it's speculative or second chance scenario. So I like that pick. Thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very solid pick.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm potentially going to try and trade in here. So I'll be honest, I was not listening the greatest there, but no, I do think they are pretty desperate for some tools. They got rid of Griffin Logue there. They have some aging defenders down there. So I don't mind it. They're looking to really attack now, but because they went so deep into finals, that if any team was going to select him, it's someone that wants to win right now. So I think it does make sense.
No, I love it. And if you do want to trade in, scream
it. Gold Coast on the clock, I believe.
Well, what pick is the St Kilda pick? Because I might be trying to come in for that one.
44. You've got one more pick after this.
And as I stated earlier, it is available because they don't want to take another pick.
Perfect. Let me have a bit of a think about that one, and then we'll come back to you.
Guess what? Whatever you offer from the future is going to be accepted. So. But I can do Gold Coast picks. Another small, I don't know if you call it a fly, a little bit of a fly here. Gold Coast don't have that many positions on their list to fill. So what they're going to take Harvey Gallagher. who's he's slightly undersized player from Bendigo Pioneers. He's kind of played everywhere. He got thrown back late in the year. And they are looking for players. Their back line is absolutely decimated to start the year, particularly for the smaller defenders. Probably doesn't have the pace that they're after, but I think he's got the IQ and the ability to hit targets to, he's not fast himself, but I think he'll be able to move the ball fast enough. So they'll take Harvey Gallagher.
Mate, I think that's a great pick. And VFL Carlton fans may remember Harvey. He played towards the end of last year as well for us. So we saw him play in the forward line and a little bit down the back. Didn't have great success, but didn't look out of place. He did take a well-taken goal. So obviously started to play with them bigger bodies and really showing his sights in VFL. So I like that pick. Good pick.
Yeah, I think you nailed that one.
Thanks, guys.
Let's see what this St Kilda is happening.
Well, I'm ready to come and take this pick away from you if you're after. I would love if maybe West Coast could trade. What is it? Was it? We're in the third round, I think, here, or just about it. We'll give you a future third.
You are pick 44, 362 points. You've got to find out. So that is a third rounder, yeah.
Beautiful. Future third would do me.
Oh, St Kilda will happily accept that because that's basically a free second rounder next year.
Sweet. That sounds good to me. And with that, I think there's a player here that I like the Western Australia connection. I would love West Coast here to bring in a Jed Hagen. I think it makes sense. He's that sort of mid-forward, can go down forward and kick some goals and sort of impact on that scoreboard. But then also, I just think that he uses the ball so well that I think that's just what West Coast need. They need a bit more outside pace at times. Get someone that is from Western Australia. If he's available there, I wouldn't mind West Coast coming back in for that.
Mate, I think that's a great selection. I think he's an obvious one as well. Suits what West Coast are doing. They don't want any fear, and they've got probably a perfect selection there. I think that's a good selection.
Yeah, and look, I was reading up a bit about him, and one of the draft places had short kicking as one of his skills. And so, look, that replaces SPS perfectly. Get him out of there, bring in another short kick specialist. I think you can tick that one off.
I think you've done well. I think it's a good selection. And like you say, advantage for St Kilda is they've technically got a back-end third rounder, back-end second rounder for a third rounder, really, with you finishing predicted 18th or 17th.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, no, St Kilda are happy with that, particularly given they hadn't planned any further.
Well, we've got Hawthorn, and sticking with Hawthorn, looking at projects, I'm looking at Adam Gllenn here, a guy that slipped down because of his one-dimensional pace. Those who are familiar with my draft previews, I've had a big issue with football pundits saying, oh, if you're not quick, you can't be any good. And said the last two Brownlow medalists happen to be guys that you've also said are slow in Ollie Wines and Mr. Patrick Cripps. And if you think quick, it doesn't matter. And what better coaching staff, in my opinion, than Mitchell, who was one of the quickest thinkers in the game. I think Gllenn is a better version of Diego O'Meara, suits that big body role. He's a brute. And I think suddenly Hawthorn are building that future straight away this draft.
Yeah,
no,
I think if they can work off the rust and one-dimensional sort of players worry me, but there's going to be no pressure down at the Hawks for him to develop terribly soon. So,
mate, hopefully it works.
He's an interesting player. Like, I had him a lot higher earlier in the year because you say one-dimensional, but he's one dimension he's so good at. And he's so good at that inside craft. And what him and Filippo were able to do in that South Australian team together at the state level, playing against the best under 18s, he was dominating out there with them. And I think that if you can harness that talent, and you don't need to add too many more strings to the bow, that if you can get the right system around him, I think it works. And he sort of dropped down a little bit because there's a bit more exciting talent. But as far as contested clearance specialists, he's one of the better ones in this draft. So I think to get him this late, if it doesn't work out, like how many of these third round picks do work out, I think he's one to at least take the punt on.
I think he's risk-free. Do you know what I mean? Risk-free, and I think just Sam Mitchell would. You can tell, Sam Mitchell's going to make him a superstar.
Yeah.
If anyone's going to do it, he is. It's anyone's going to do it. He can do it. And then I've got Carlton, and because I've done so well at Carlton, drafting for him, I've only got one spot left to fill, and that is none other than a key forward. And I'm going to take, in my opinion, a guy that no one's talked about purely towards the end of the year, but this time last year was probably top 10. Thomas Scully, come on down. 202 centimetre key forward. Carlton now have got their both holes filled. Nick Austin's got no more picks left. Cue in the rack and let's go down for a beer at the Cricketers, Nick.
Well done.
Yeah, no, it's going to be so interesting to see what does happen with this guy. Literally last year, everyone was saying he's the number one pick, potential top 3, and now he could potentially go undrafted at this stage. It's crazy to see the development that happens in 1 year, but at 203 centimeters, like anything could happen with him. And I think for Carlton, a team like that has guns that you're not needing to force him in, you can just let him develop. One of those clubs need to pick this guy up and just see if they can get something out of him, because like raw attributes, he could be an absolute superstar. He just needs to really work on the football side of things. But he's so athletic, he's mobile, the potential's there for him. So those kind of teams, I definitely rate trying to bring a guy like Scully in.
Could be the next Matthew Watson.
At least you're only giving up a third round pick and not one of your early ones.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think it's one of them things that, it's just it's a safe pick around this time, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's be honest. It's a safe pick, and we're on Hawthorn now, 47, and because we've taken a couple of one South Australian, I'm looking here at going with Jaden McGaw from for South Adelaide as well. I think that is looking at they've worked on their forward and the back. They've got a lot of tall guys, so it's not something that's needing. So a lot of list spots to fill for Hawthorn in real life. I think it adds a fact that they've played juniors together and just keeps that safety net for them. Keeps the safety net, and a guy I think should be higher, but purely because of injury, he's not.
Yeah, no, he's someone that I had going a little bit higher. I was maybe looking at taking him with Melbourne's selection just a little bit before, so I think it's a smart option.
Thoughts, Lack?
Yeah, I think I reckon this is about where he'll go in the real deal. He has what do they call it, X Factor class or whatever, but there's quite a few deficiencies. But at this point in the draft, I'm taking punts. The way I draft, I like high floors early and then high ceilings late, which might be the wrong way to draft. But I think this guy has the potential to have that high ceiling.
Well, let's hope so. And I think Hawthorn are in a beautiful situation where they can just do whatever they want. Do you know what I mean? They can do whatever they want. They need the personnel in. And it would suit modern day drafting to bring 2 South Australians if you are a Victorian side. Mr. Ben will be happy because Collingwood are up next, and that is who I've got on there. Mr. Harry Lemmy is, for me, the next best available player. And at 199, I think he's a guy that's probably just a bit late, but a guy that I think could slot in straight away. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I'm angry. You took him.
Yeah, me too. I'm angry too.
I was definitely lining him up weirdly for maybe Richmond's selection with the Jack Rewalt coming to the end of his career as maybe someone they could develop into that role. But no, he's another one that had a lot of promise earlier into this year, but his performance just hasn't been amazing, hasn't been consistent enough, hasn't been kicking enough goals. But again, potential's there. He's 202 centimeters, so another big boy. Anything could happen at this stage, and those teams just need to take the talent that could be there.
Mate, I agree. And to answer your question, Rob, I have got UU Ashwin, but I just think for me, looking at how he's gone, I'm a big fan of UU as well. A mate of mine has played with him. I think he might be more of a rookie selection for the Pies. I can't see him going very late, but let me know what you think. Thank you very much, Lockie. Upgrade. Hopefully you enjoy that. But up next, we've got the Orcs, and this is probably one of their last picks of the draft. We're going to bring in Jason Gilby from the Bendigo Pioneers, defensive midfielder, a little bit more foot speed, very good kick of the football, and I think that would suit Mr. Mitchell's feelings of what he likes his players to do.
Yeah, a little bit of a Mr. Fix-It, Gilby, and you know why I love him, Pom. He wears sleeves, so hopefully that band doesn't exist anymore at Hawthorn.
I think it was lifted, wasn't it? Because Chad Wingard brought them in.
Oh, yes, that's right. The GOAT, Chad Wingard.
No, I like the pick. He's another one of those guys that I maybe rate higher than a few others. Endurance is there. He just runs wherever you need him to be, like Lekdog said. So, yeah, I'm really interested to see where he does get selected in the real AFL draft.
I'm cognizant that every single pick so far we've said is good, but it's very easy to talk yourself into
100%.
these. It's very easy to talk yourself into the selections. Like the logic all makes sense to why the players are getting picked. And I'm not good enough at football to sit here and say this guy's shit. So, but yeah, no, agree.
Yeah.
Mr. Fix-It.
Well, Ian's on next. Pick 50. We've only got a few selections left, and Richmond finally enter the fray.
Yeah, well, you've ruined it because I wanted Lemmy, and worst case, I was going to take a Tom Scully, but both are gone. And so Richmond here, like, really, what are their needs? Like, they've brought in these midfielders, so do they really need another youngster? I'm looking at guys that are available, and there's probably one that I think talent-wise I'd have over a lot, and so I'm almost just taking, do you just go best available here? And I think that's what I'll do. I don't know if it's necessarily a need, but I'm going with Blake Drury because I've got him highest on my board. I'm surprised he's lasted this long.
Same.
I've got him rated 37. He, in a couple of games for Vic Metro, exploded when given a bit more midfield time, ended up spending a lot more down at sort of that half forward, which at times he looks like he can really impact well, but then like he just, sometimes he blazes away and his kicking isn't great and he doesn't kick the easy goals. But sometimes he shows that X factor. And so I think Richmond, they've got probably a few of those half forward impact types. But what's another one that could explode? And on talent wise, he's probably the pick there.
I had him 37, so I just didn't have a team that had a pick around then.
Mate, I'm enjoying it, and I think it's a great pick as well. And he comes from the Chargers as well. We know how strong their academy is. Yeah. So ready-made talent, and he's playing for Richmond. So, I mean, he's in a great system to maximize any potential talent from him. We go to the Bombers with Leck.
Hey! The Bombers are on the board. And they've lost their academy player. Hooray! I think at this point they're asking themselves whether they... I think they're going to take... This isn't really a need pick, to be honest. I haven't really thought this one through that much specifically for Essendon. He's just next on my board. I'm going to take Cooper Vickery in this spot. I'm assuming I don't think he's been taken yet.
He's still there.
He's still there.
And reason being, I know in this instance that our academy player was taken. I think in real life, he's still going to be on the board. And I think they're going to use this back end of the draft to top up on their academy and their father's sons and stuff like that. But Cooper Vickery's there, so they will take him.
Right, I love it. I love it. And Cody, mate, we will do. I will be posting, and there'll be a video following as well where we can see where we all did and have a bit of a crack at it when we see the real AFL. But no, I like that pick to answer your question, Cooper Vickery. I think it makes sense, and we know how the AFL is. I don't think the Dogs would be dickheads and take Moncada. They'd leave him till pick 60, even though it's an obvious pick.
Yeah, and I think it's Cooper Vickery's an awkward one. They've got quite a few players, particularly through the mid-season draft, that kind of fill that role, kind of can run off halfback, kind of can move up to the wing. It's like he's a bit of a nothing selection for them, but he's quick. He rebounds well. Put him in a team with Merritt and Parrish and try and link up with them. But yeah, I just think at this point, if they can get some value on a selection before they go and finalise with Academy and Father Sons and all that, I think why wouldn't you?
No,
Love
right.
your thinking. Love your thinking. And GWS come on the board.
Back again. And
Surely
this is a
you've
tough
used all
one.
your selections.
We probably have. It is probably a pass. I honestly have not looked at list sizes. I didn't want to get too confusing. So most likely GWS can't use this pick. But in the off chance that they do, I would be, and they have one more spot, I would be probably looking at Billy Dowling here. They lost a couple of midfielders. So bring in probably my next favourite out of them all from North Adelaide. Like he's been pretty consistent this year. Hasn't shown the top scale at times, but I think is for a fine player around there. If you need another midfielder after if you lost a couple, he would be who I would select. But I would potentially imagine that they just would pass because they've already used too many.
So what was
Pommy's trying to look it up for me?
Yeah, I'm just looking now. Who are you? You are, where's it gone?
GWS.
GWS, based on what they've re-signed. You have 37 contracted players. So you have up to 7, and you have taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so you have got one more spot.
Beautiful. We'll take Big Billy. Bring him in.
Who'd you take, sorry?
Billy Dowling is who we're after.
Oh, nice. Yeah, nice.
You know what, actually, to be a stickler in the mud as well, I've just totally missed. Cooper Vickery is Hawthorn.
Oh, is he?
Hawthorn
will match your bid.
Oof.
Right.
Oh, no.
I didn't even realise that.
Someone's going to snake my Billy Dowling now.
No, because it's too complicated. If I do that, I won't be doing that.
There you are. So, yeah, sorry. Essendon are still on the clock, and you've still got one pick, Ian, for GWS. So get that prepared. So Cooper Vickery is matched by Hawthorn.
All right. Then if we're going to go with Essendon's next pick again,
yeah,
they will take, for the same reasons we spoke about before, we will take Hugh Bond.
Yeah,
good.
That makes sense.
Good pick. Hugh Bond from the GMV Rebels. And we'll go straight back to GWS. Are you still taking your mate?
Yeah, 100% lock that one in, Pommy.
Okay. Billy Dowling is GWS. I was correct, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. That's the one.
Okay, back to Leg Dog, 54. You are Geelong
Cats. Hey, they're on the board. So Geelong have actually said that all of their father sons and academies they'll be taking as rookie draft selections. And having a chat to a few people and looking at their list, there's not a lot that they lack, but I think what they could use is a nice medium defender. And I'm pretty sure this player hasn't been taken yet. I think they're going to select from the Oakley Chargers, Luke Teal.
Yeah, good pick.
Who I think he's just got good skills, and Geelong, they don't want for a lot, but if they can bring in a player and stash him for a bit, particularly one with some talent, then I think Luke Teal's a really solid selection, and he's probably closer to playing as a medium forward / not quite key forward than anyone else they'd be looking at this point in the draft.
They are that horrible side as well that takes a player pick 50 odd, and he becomes the best player in the history of the game.
Yeah, I really like him as an option. I don't know if it translates to big bodies and all that, but one to watch.
Mate, I love it. And we've got Adelaide back on the clock. Big Ian, what are you taking?
Yeah, I'm going to go homegrown here. Probably like that. I would have loved to have gotten more midfielders in for Adelaide because I think that's really something they need, as in really top end. But bringing in Rankin, they sort of gave away that selection, and there's probably not a lot left. But what I would take is Nick Sadler, the 180 centimeter from Sturt. He's a midfielder. Seen him play a little bit in person, and he's another one that there's obviously so many reasons he's at this selection. But at stages, he's shown me like a lovely burst through a stoppage, a nice clean pickup, and all of a sudden he's gone. And I feel like if you have a high ceiling, those are the little things you tend to look for. And a lot of players around these selections maybe just have been at a lower level, but I have seen Sadler play higher at times. It's just consistency hasn't been there. And he's got a little bit smaller on size. But again, seeing that upside a little bit, I think if you're a South Australian team and you've got a late pick, he's someone to throw a dart at.
Mate, and it suits them as well because he's a Sturt boy. So suits Adelaide's selection. They usually stick Hutt to home at this point, and I think he's someone that can grow with Crows. It's not an exciting selection, but it's a logical selection.
Yeah, that'll do them, I think.
I agree with you. Milkshake brings all the boys to the ad as well. Luke Teal, he's one of them players that will go to Geelong, Swans, Richmond, someone like that. High ceiling, do you know what I mean? Very raw skills and becomes a superstar. Legdog, Port Adelaide, what are they doing?
Yeah, I think in real life they'll probably rookie these guys, but they haven't confirmed if they're doing that. So I will be taking our academy player, Nathan Barkler. I don't think he's an amazing prospect. He's had some exposure in the SANFL, defender / mid. I think he's just a flyer. I think when they traded for Jason Horne-Francis and in our draft took Tom McCallum with their first pick, I think they were sort of done. So they'll just fill up with academy and father sons here.
Hey, makes sense to me. Makes sense to me. I will just put him in. Yep, fantastic. And what are you going with, Mr. Who's next? It is you as well, Essendon. Who are you going with for Essendon?
So GWS is out, are they?
Yeah.
Essendon with their second last pick in the draft. They will be looking at, is there a local boy I have available on my list? They are going to, what are they going to do? They're going to bid on, or they're not going to bid because I think Gold Coast are going to, all right, I'll just do it. They're going to take Bryn Little, the academy player from Gold Coast. He's a key defender. They're going to take him, and Gold Coast are not going to match. Why are they taking him? Just, I think with Francis leaving, there's a slight gap in the back end of depth for key positions. We see this a lot where clubs take someone else's academy, take a flyer on an academy. We did it with Luke Parks, and who knows if it goes anywhere. But Bryn Little will be going to Essendon.
Hey, I love it. I love it. The Suns Giants, they're going there. And where are you here, Richmond? What are you looking at?
Yeah, look, there's not a lot available really here that, again, I've spoken about Richmond. I don't really know what their needs are here, trying to find some sort of talent. Like, I'm looking at it and nothing really, really excites me. There's honestly not a lot. Like, there's a couple of players that, like, I really rate an Archie Lovelock as a potential flyer from a bit I've seen, but I just don't think he really suits their need. So I'm going to, with this pick, I'm going to annoy Geelong a little bit. I think I know they've got enough midfielders, but just bring in someone else that can potentially develop over years. I'm going Ted Closey is just keep stockpiling these mids coming through, because a few of them recently, like you've seen of Riley Collier Dawkins, didn't develop and then they got rid of him. They don't seem to have a lot of that real youngsters. So yeah, just throw a flyer at him, I think.
Geelong will not be matching.
They're not?
No. They've said I would match, but they've said publicly they're only taking them if they get to the rookie draft.
Jeez.
I don't know if that's
thank you.
I don't know if that's bullshit or not, but that's what they've said.
Wow, the list manager as long as spoken. Ted Clusey, what a player as well. What an absolute jet as well. A very, very solid boy. And Geelong have let him down. What are they doing?
They're going a slightly left wing with their selection. They're actually looking all the way to WA for probably the best named player in the draft. They're going to take Steely Green as a bit of depth in that midfield. Just think there's a little bit more upside to him than Closey. I know that we took Jai Clark with our early pick, but it may as well take a flyer late on Steely Green.
Mate, I like it. I remember doing his draft profile. He is a really exciting player as well. He's got a great name. He's one of them players that makes you smile when you say his name. So don't mind it. Surprise, Ted, though. Tell you what, the Richmond will be going mental that they've got a ready-made player that Geelong have ploughed 10 years into probably since he was out of the womb.
Like I said, not of the move that I would make, but based on everything they've publicly said, they reckon they're not going to match any bids. So,
and fingers crossed there's no go-home factor, or if he does, I'm demanding a first-round pick for him.
Yeah.
Going full.
Well, that's it, right? They don't care if someone goes somewhere else for 2 years because they're going to get him anyway.
Mate, no, I love it. Juddy, I got Ollie Hollands. I got him, mate. I turned pick 10 into Ollie Hollands, and who else? I was a genius. It was my best work in Ollie Holland. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Got all the Ollies, mate.
If Nick Austin does as well as that, he can take my yearly salary. But we are right at the crux now. There is a handful of picks. Fremantle, pick 60. What's our Fremantle doing?
Yeah, so Fremantle are going to take Jackson Broadbent here.
Yeah.
From is he played Peel or
Peel?
Yeah, the Peel Thunder ruckman. They need some players who can come in and potentially play pretty quick, smart. I know they got Luke Jackson across, but if something happens to Ryan, they're going to need someone to step up. So yeah,
mate, I love it. And he was best on in the final as well, the Waffle Colts final. He was absolutely sensational that game. So he's huge as well. Juggernaut of a player. I'm a big fan. And
maybe it allows them to potentially trade Sean Darcy. I think he might be coming out of contract at the end of next year as well. So send him straight to Carlton. You can add Broadbent.
Yeah, I think I said Ryan. I meant Darcy.
Do you know what I mean? No, I love it. Carlton will sign Darcy. You've heard it here first. And then we're on Essendon, their last pick. What are they doing?
Essendon. Right, that's me. They will be taking Jaden
Davey.
Jaden Davey.
Tell you what, the first brothers to go in a draft in the same year. You've got to love it. Didn't play this year, but tell you what, there's no escaping his talent, and probably one I think be a little bit higher when we redo this draft in the year's times. Do you like that pick, Ian, for them?
Yeah, I don't mind it. Sorry, I don't want to fact correct you, but there was the Mackay twins that came through as well.
Didn't go to the same club though.
Oh, true. That's what you're saying. I'm an idiot and I don't listen, so I take that back. But yeah, that'll be interesting seeing those two play there. Look, I'll be honest. I think he had quite a few injuries throughout the year and didn't play a lot, so I don't know a lot about Davey himself. Know a lot more about Orwin Jr., but I think to match that up is another free hit. If you can develop and be anything, it's a big win at those late picks.
Mate.
Yeah, he probably gets rookie, but whatever.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Well, I mean, we are at the picks where they'd probably be passed, but I mean, we might as well fill it up. It'd be boring to pass them. I'm with the Dogs now, and I'm looking at what's left, and I'm taking Taj Campbell-Farrell. You may remember one of my famous quotes on Blue Abroad was, Terry, they don't hand out Moorish medals. When we were talking about Stocker. Well, here is a Moorish medal winner, and I think he fits in with them. I think he's a very underrated player, and I think someone that will be a speculative pick at this point in the proceedings. So I am sending him to the Doggies. And then I've got North Melbourne, and I think North Melbourne want a bit more of a mature age player. And I might surprise people here because he's been linked numerous times to AFL clubs, has entered the draft this year. Casey Voss, with pick 63. Very highly rated on some draft boards. I think for me, he's one of the best defenders, and he's a mature age. And North are in the position now where it's risk-free, isn't it? Just punt players.
I'd absolutely love to see him get selected. Wouldn't surprise me if someone does take a shot on him earlier because he had a really good season. And if someone needs a plug and play, he's there to go. He's had that extra year development playing against men. So I like that pick.
Mate, we do what we can do. And then we finish with Gold Coast, Sydney and Fremantle. You've got 2 picks in a row. Gold Coast late. What are you doing, Mr. Let Dog?
Well, Gold Coast are actually going to pass. Unless, if that's boring, because I think they've only got 3 spots for the national draft. But just
by the looks of it, they would be on rookie picks now.
Yeah, so if they will rookie Bo Ted Castle, who's an academy player, but for this, they've passed.
Okay, well, I finished with Sydney. Sydney are going to... Sydney will pass as well. Do you know what I mean? They'll go into the rookie draft.
Great way to end it.
And are you passing with your last pick, Fremantle?
No, Fremantle are going to take local boy Jed Adams.
Yeah.
Key defender.
Right, that.
Mate,
I think so. Port Adelaide is... I've read that they've only got 2 picks in the draft, but don't you need to take 3 picks?
You can take one in the rookie, does count as 3 picks. Because I know Carlton did that where we only used 2 in the national. As long as you take one in rookie or any of the other many drafts that you have, as long as you take 3.
They've also taken Francis Evans, which with the new AFL rules, delisted free agents count as a pick now.
True.
There you go.
Well, in the rookie draft, they'll take Will Franco as a father-son because why not? And that's me done.
Beautiful.
Well, I've enjoyed this, but we'll have just a quick recap for those just joining now. But I am just printing them out for us. But let's have a look at what we got up to. So these were the first 33 selections. I've got way too many overlays on this screen. We go live way too much on the show, but here we are. These are the first 33 for you joining. We had a few trades. We had a few bid matches. I
can't see him, Pom. There we go.
There we go.
So that was the first selections. No real surprises there, really. Maybe Ollie Holland sliding, but you can see how some of the clubs would have gone.
I think it's relatively close. I think Matthew Jefferson, if he slides to 14, I'd be annoyed if Melbourne get him. I don't think there's too many crazy surprises there. I thought Keilor going to Collingwood at 19 was a slight surprise. It's a good pick, but I thought it was a slight surprise.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's some there as well. When you look at some of the draft boards, like, that's totally different to mine. Like Philippou set the tone. I think I do think Essendon will, in real life, go with Sheasel's their dream. But after that, I think that they'll focus on something. I could even see them trading down.
Yeah, that crossed my mind after those top 4 came out the way they did, trade down. But as discussed, too hard for my brain to work.
I often find this happens, though, which will be the interesting thing on draft night, where if you go through every single possible phantom draft that every single person on the internet has made, as soon as one pick goes the way no one thought it would, everything goes out the window. And I think the Philippou selection did that. And I'll be interested to see what actually does happen on the night. What selection throws everything out and then selectors are choosing things that we maybe aren't suspecting.
The other thing I wonder, just from an Essendon perspective, in my head, I thought I was going to be able to get Alwyn Davey Jr. outside of 20. I thought just people might steer clear of him.
Yeah.
So I took a bit of a punt on Philippou. I think if Essendon are sitting in the draft thinking, geez, we're going to get a bid on this, we need to get an absolute sure thing lock, they might go a bit more conservative with that, with pick 5.
Yeah, mate, I agree with you. And I think what we saw with this draft is I got an inkling when some of the clubs didn't go for Ollie Henry that maybe it was worth sacrificing 10 to go down and taking the risk that. So like in real life, doggies then will have that option. Do we go Hewitt or Holland? But I looked at the draft board and thought, I'm going to get Hewitt or Holland. So that might be something as well for Nick Austin to contemplate. That's how it works. Sometimes dropping down there was a risk when I did it, but it would have worked out pretty well.
I love it.
And then we've got the second half. We had some fun here.
This is where the fun happens. This is where the fun happens.
Well, there's no real surprises there, is there? They're all exciting picks, aren't they? These are all speculative picks, and you're basically making it up. Probably the shock for me was Geelong refusing to lie to the media and not matching Richmond's bid, but it's a tough one there. There's a lot of speculative picks there, and I think Jackson Binns at Melbourne is an absolute genius pick, just quietly.
I loved Luke Teal getting to Geelong. I thought he was someone I had on my list for them, so I was really happy with that. And obviously, in real life, I think they're not going to bullshit and they're going to just match all the bids. But whatever,
mate. If they do, we'll slate them. We'll slate them for lying.
Ruining the mock draft.
Well, obviously, huge thank you to you two. I know you put loads of research in. It was a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed that. And it's actually less time than I thought it would be. I mean, look at this. We have done a full AFL draft in 2 hours and talk shit.
Yeah.
We've done incredibly well.
That's about 46 hours less time than the AFL takes. So
Gill will be watching this going, oh my God, it can be done in an afternoon.
Get these guys in, is what he's saying.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Damo sending some love. You've done Fremantle proud. But thank you very much. Go and subscribe to the Jock Reynolds podcast to see Mr. Leckdog. He's there. He's a fantasy guru doing Movember. He's also moderately funny. And obviously, if you are a blue bagger, even if you're not, and you just want something different, go and subscribe to the Navy Blue Corner. Ian and Lockie are two of my favorite humans. They are the only podcast I have never missed. One of
the only Carlton podcasts that I tune into every week. So very good content.
They are the most positive. They always make me laugh. When I am at the point of I want to adopt a cat just to kick it, Ian stops me doing that. He does, with his positivity and his way of life.
I appreciate that. And while we're, kissing up to each other, I got to say, it's great to be doing this with Leckdog. So I remember being in high school, listening to the Jock Reynolds podcast, getting me through basically every single period in high school to actually learn my super coach. And to this day, it is such a great listen, trying to get all the insights. So it's great to be able to then jump in and do something like this.
I appreciate it, mate. Jeez, that makes me feel old. Thank you.
Leckdog's actually 55. I've got to say, Leckdog, to be fair, I told you are an icon in the fantasy world. It is the most commonly thing that I ever hear on a night out. You're mates with Leckdog. It's like you are like a god to people.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm really honing on that 16 to 18-year-old audience. That's my peak crew. Going to Dax.
At least I'm still carrying through now, which is good.
It's good. I get to go to Dax in Ringwood and get shouted drinks. It's great.
Bring it back, please.
Well, I mean, thank you very much, everyone who has stayed and watched this. 138 of you were watching continuously throughout the stream, which is mental. Thank you very much. Thank you to Ian and Leckdog. And until next time, see you soon. Much love. Palm out.